I still remember the smell of that day. The smoke. The panic. The noise that felt like the whole city stopped breathing. It was winter in Chicago. Cold enough that the air hurt when you inhaled. I was standing outside the coffee shop across from Cole Tower, waiting for my drink, when I heard the sirens. At first, it sounded normal. This city hears sirens every day. But when I looked across the street, I saw something different. Smoke was rising fast from the lower floors of the building. People were running out, some coughing, some shouting names. Cole Tower wasn't some random place. It was one of the biggest office buildings downtown, home to Cole Industries. I didn't know much about what they did, something with tech and logistics, but everyone knew the name Richard Cole. He was the big boss. Rich, powerful, always in the news. But there was also another man most people ignored. A homeless guy who sat by the entrance almost every day. His name was Tom. Everyone around the block knew him. Not because he caused trouble. He never did. He was quiet, respectful, always greeted people who passed. I'd given him a cup of coffee a few times, and he'd smile like it meant the world. "Thanks, man," he'd say. "Just trying to make it through another day." Tom looked about 55. You could tell he'd been through stuff. His jacket had old military patches, and someone once told me he was a veteran. No one ever really stopped to ask his story, though. He'd sit there, hands tucked into his sleeves, just watching life go by. And every morning, at the same time, a black Mercedes would pull up to the building. Out stepped Richard Cole, tall, expensive coat, phone glued to his ear. He walked fast, never looked around. And every single morning, Tom would lift his head and say, "Morning, sir." Every single morning, Cole would walk right past him like he didn't exist. That was their routine. You could set your watch by it. The day of the fire was no different. Until it wasn't. It started around 4 p.m. Most of the workers were getting ready to head out. I remember because I saw them pouring out onto the street like ants when the alarms went off. At first, I thought it was just a drill. But when I saw the smoke thick and black coming from the loading area, I knew it was real. People started yelling. One woman tripped trying to run across the street. Others were on their phones, calling for help, calling loved ones. You could feel the fear. It's strange. In movies, people run together in a panic. In real life, everyone scatters. I stood there frozen watching. Then someone yelled, "There's still someone inside." I turned. A young security guard was shouting into his radio. "The CEO's daughter, she's still in there. She came to visit him." Everything after that felt blurry. The crowd started shouting. Someone tried to run toward the door, but the heat pushed them back. The guards were panicking, too scared to go in. "We have to wait for the fire department," one of them shouted. But it was clear, there wasn't time. That's when Tom moved. He didn't say a word. He just dropped his cup, stood up, and walked toward the building. I can still see it, slow, steady steps, smoke blowing toward him. A woman next to me said, "What's he doing?" I yelled out, "Hey, don't go in there." But he didn't stop. He pulled the old army jacket over his face and disappeared into the dark doorway. The crowd went quiet. For a few seconds, all you could hear was the siren echoing in the distance. It felt like forever. Then came shouting from inside, muffled, broken by the sound of cracking glass. Someone said, "He's still in there." Another voice, "He's gonna die." People started crying. A man in a suit fell to his knees. I realized later it was Richard Cole. He'd come down from his office, covered in ash, shouting his daughter's name. "Emily, Emily." He tried to run in, but the guards grabbed him. He was losing it. "That's my daughter," he kept yelling. But there was nothing he could do. The firefighters finally showed up, but before they even reached the entrance, we saw movement through the smoke. A figure stumbling forward, barely standing. It was Tom, and he was carrying someone. Everyone started shouting, "He's got her! He's got her!" He came out coughing hard, holding the girl in his arms. She looked about 20, her clothes burned, her face black from smoke. He set her down gently on the sidewalk and fell right beside her. I ran closer. The firefighters pushed through, taking over fast. They gave the girl oxygen, checked her pulse. She was alive. Tom was barely conscious. His hands were burned, skin peeling. But he kept asking, "Is she okay? Tell me she's okay." When they told him she was breathing, he smiled and passed out. Mr. Cole dropped beside them, crying. Not quiet tears, real shaking sobs. I'd never seen anything like it. He kept saying, "Please stay with me. Please. He didn't care who was watching. The man everyone thought was made of stone looked completely broken. They put both of them into ambulances. Emily first, then Tom. The fire crew kept working for hours. News trucks came, people took videos. By night, the story was everywhere. Homeless veteran saves CEO's daughter. Over the next few days, we all learned who Tom really was. His full name was Thomas Reed, a former Army sergeant. He served overseas, came home with PTSD, couldn't hold a job, lost his wife, lost his house. He'd been living on the streets for almost 4 years. Mr. Cole paid for all his medical bills. He visited him in the hospital every day. Some reporters tried to make a show out of it, but from what people who worked in the building said, Cole never talked to the press. He just sat there with Tom, sometimes in silence. A month later, Tom got discharged. Someone snapped a photo of him walking out with bandages on his hands, smiling weakly. Cole was right beside him, holding a coat for him. After that, things changed around the building. You could feel it. Mr. Cole wasn't the same. He started a program for veterans. Housing, therapy, job training. They called it the Reed Project. Some said he poured millions into it. And Tom, he didn't go back to the streets. Cole gave him an apartment and a small job in the lobby. First week he came to work, people didn't even recognize him. Clean haircut, buttoned shirt, still with that calm smile. I saw him one morning, a few months after it all happened. He was standing by the front desk when Cole walked in. Cole stopped, shook his hand, said something I couldn't hear. Tom laughed, a real full laugh. For a moment, they both just stood there like old friends. Sometimes I still think about that day. About how fast things can change. 1 minute, you're invisible. The next, you're the reason someone else is alive. I wasn't inside the building. I didn't feel the heat or the fear they did. But I'll never forget watching that man walk into the smoke. Not for money, not for glory, just because someone needed help. You see a lot living in this city. But I've never seen courage like that before. And maybe I never will again.